Alright, how's it going, my magnificent sons of bitches? Now, I've done a review on this movie. It wasn't a really good movie, it wasn't a solid movie at all. The writing was kind of lazy, but I decided I was going to go ahead and break it down because I see a lot of people starting to go ahead and do video responses to this movie, and then they try to break it down from an intellectual level. Basically, what they're doing is they're flinging shit on the wall and praying that it sticks as far as it pertains to the Civil War. Now, to give you a heads up that this movie will probably be a pretty hot button topic because it is an election season. So a lot of people are going to start to cover this movie. You got people like Tim Pool and people like fucking Destiny that, and I'm going to explain their reasoning and their whole method and their basically um, the psychology of why they envision themselves as bigger than they really are. You know what I'm saying? They kind of romanticize themselves in these roles, and they can just envision because this is as close to a hero as they're going to be. They're just pretty much gamer nerds that come out and basically put out media talking points for one side or the other, and they have no real clue as to what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't know what the fuck to do. They're like a fucking car chasing, they're like a little dog chasing a car or something. They wouldn't know what to do if they caught it. That's pretty much what they are. And so you're starting to have a lot of people bring this back up into, and for whatever reason, I know that like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, YouTube doesn't have the traffic that it has, used to because they're more like an Operation Mockingbird. Um, to be real, so a lot of people, I know that a lot of people don't traffic these independent sites anymore. Twitter is mainly shills and grifters trying to market to each other. And Facebook has become nothing but spam. So the State Department doesn't have any real metric to figure out where public discourse really is right now. So what we have going on here is a Civil War movie made by a guy in the UK who has no fucking clue about domestic policies for the US. Like I said, there yet again, they get a revisionist version of history, so they don't really understand the whole nuances behind the Civil War. They still think that the Civil War was fought completely over slavery, that it was a single issue that caused the Civil War, and that just is the fucking dumbest way to look at the Civil War. The Civil War was more than a single issue. You understand what I'm saying? The real reason behind the Civil War was the moral tariff, which was basically a response by the government after the panic of 1857 caused by the crashing of the SS Central America. They decided that they were going to go ahead and put a 68% tax on southern goods and trades that were being traded with the British, and then they would go ahead cause all this debt on the South where they were buying up southern farms. So it was partially because of that moral tariff, and it was also partially because of eminent domain. Um, you also have the South wanting to keep states' rights versus a centralized authoritarian government, also known as pretty much fascism, which in all essence, Lincoln is the father of fascism, and a lot of these socialists live off of fascism. And that's the God's honest truth. In fact, it was Lincoln himself who inspired Karl Marx in his little communist manifestos that had inspired. They were all inspired by Abraham Lincoln. So I mean, ultimately you take in consideration that it was the moral tariff, that it was the eminent domain thing, that it was states' rights versus a centralized government authority. And then, it was only Lincoln, it was only after that that Lincoln decided he would go ahead and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and free the slaves, which he never freed one single slave in the North. He only did the Emancipation Proclamation, only freed the slaves in the South, which Lincoln had no control over. And in fact, the slaves weren't freed until after the ratification of the 13th Amendment, which wasn't even complete until 1901. So, yeah, this is the inept understanding for the Brits. You know what I'm saying? And every other culture, as far as it pertains to the American Civil War and why the American Civil War was fought. It had very, because like I said, Lincoln was prepared to go ahead and make owning slaves a constitutional right, but the South said no. That it was about that moral tariff. So, you know, if the South would have never seceded, then more than likely the states would have stayed together in owning slaves, but that wouldn't have benefited a majority of the South. Only a small single percentage owned fucking slaves. So that's why we went to civil war. And so their understanding is based off of the dumbed down version to the lowest common fucking denominator of our Civil War that are taught in these institutions. And so when you get a film like this right here, the writing is just as lazy as the academics who go out there and, you know, teach this revisionist history and rework these narratives in the media. You know, the writing is just as lazy now in Hollywood. So we get Alex Garland's Civil War, and it was really dumb, particularly if you're a military person and you understand how these operations and procedures work. You would understand a lot more. However, we're looking at a movie that's basically marketed to the gamers who have very little to no life experience. They've been protected in their little cul-de-sacs and shit, where they can get on their little gaming box or Xbox or Pretendo or whatever the fuck they do, and they could sit there and beat their chest and pretend like they're fucking real men. But at the end of the day, we know that they have no fucking clue what they're talking about. So, like I said, this movie was a hard C minus, probably a D plus, maybe. Wasn't the worst movie I ever saw, but it wasn't good neither. It was incredibly boring. The acting was good, and that's probably what saved a lot of it. That's probably why I give it more like a C minus, because the acting was pretty decent in this movie. Some of the characters were okay, but the writing was kind of cringe. So let's go ahead and get into it right now, and I'll explain it as I go along how this isn't how anything would work. So, you have the rebellion, some sort of agreement between Texas and California. Now, why this is completely fucking stupid and why everybody in the United States, this is the one thing that a lot of them talk about, is that ideologically, fucking Texas and California are polar opposites. You know what I'm saying? you get them close together and they're just gonna push back apart. That's where they are philosophically, ideology, in every aspect. California and Texas are polar opposites. So in this movie, it never explains that. Now I've heard people sit there and try to explain how this took place. Now we open up the movie with this president right here, given his speech that he's going to go for a third term. I'm assuming that this is more social engineering where they're putting in loose subliminal messaging with these characters. And this guy right here is supposed to somehow subliminally get into your conscience that this is Donald Trump. And you know what? To be honest with you, a lot of these fucking sociopaths that are these fucking globalist motherfuckers who are put in these positions right now that have no business being put in these positions of power, I don't think this is how they really see this going. They don't really understand that for the most part, when people were going out, they got sick of the standard globalist cookie cutter politicians like Hillary Clinton. And Donald Trump being elected was a mandate. That was the American people, that the public in general, it didn't even just got to be the American people. And I'm going to go ahead and get into what would happen as a result. But that was the American people saying, you know what, we've had enough of your bullshit. We've had enough of your, social engineering, your psychological operations. We've had enough of your fucking warmongering bullshit. tactics that you've used to try and go ahead, keep people asleep, keep people dumbed down, start these wars, go ahead and take money out of our pockets. This was a mandate. This is why Trump got elected, is because Trump didn't have that luggage that Hillary had. So, you know, the DC and the globalists as a whole have been running diversity hires. They got Obama in, and I'll go ahead and give Obama credit. That motherfucker was popular whenever he ran for president. All these little fucking woke millennials turned out to vote for him because they thought they were really doing something voting for the first black president. What they didn't realize that they were voting for the first Marxist president. This is what I've tried to get through to girls' heads that didn't understand that I was dating, is that you could have had Hillary all day long. We could have definitely voted in Hillary. But how good of a job do you think she would have done? And then, when we got her in, and she fucked over the economy, which you know she's going to do, because it's already fucked up right now with Obama alone with her position at the State Department, whenever that fucking economy collapses under that first female president, do you think that men are going to respect female leadership at all after that? Absolutely fucking not. So it's not about having just the first female president. You want the right female president. I myself wouldn't have mind having Tulsi Gabbard run. I would have been okay with Tulsi Gabbard running in 2020 and beating Donald Trump. I would have probably been like, you know what? She's migrated her position. She stands, I don't agree with a lot of her positions, but she's, you know, tolerable. And I think that that was the best candidate to run against Donald Trump. Definitely a lot better than slow Joe Biden. But it's not about getting the first female candidate. It's about like getting the right female candidate. And see, people just voted for Obama because he was a black candidate. They didn't care that he was a fucking Marxist. Well, now that dollar's inflated, you're going to get 6 more years of inflation. So with the high gas prices, high grocery prices, the high dollar menu value prices and shit that you're complaining about, they're going to continue going up for about the 6 more years simply because of these fucking phantom stimulus packages that Obama. And Trump did too. Don't get me wrong. Trump isn't in the right too. But this is largely putting in a diversity hire. So this is exactly the way that the British see Donald Trump. They see this man getting a 3rd term. This is supposedly one of the reasons why they go into civil war. Now, we've already had a president, one of the worst presidents in history, I say right behind Lincoln. Definitely not as bad as Lincoln, but pretty fucking close. And Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the first socialist president that went ahead and made us a welfare state. Served 3 terms. And the reason why is because the State Department was pushing their fucking fascism war. You know, they were installing all their little fascist policies and shit at record pace from 1913 all the way up until, you know, fucking Roosevelt's death. So they got their new Green Deal in, and they got a lot of bogus state bullshit in that, you know, ultimately adds to the economy's debt and whatnot, where we're constantly going deeper and deeper into debt. So, there's no real backstory. The movie doesn't explain how Texas and California formed a coalition, what the hell happened in Washington, D.C., why we're having a civil war. You know why it doesn't explain this shit? Because it's not really a movie about a civil war. It's a love letter to the media, to the press, to the Fourth Estate, is what they consider themselves. An extension of government and whatnot. To the media. It was a love letter to the media. It had less to do about this fucking war and more to do with the media people covering it, trying to go ahead and facilitate that narrative that these journalists put themselves on the line and shit like that, which wouldn't happen in a real-time war scenario. So, you know, this is not going to happen. However, in the movie, we start, you know, after the president delivers his speech, we go ahead, we're introduced to Kristen Dunst's character in the middle of this riot. These riots right now for BLM, the Women's March, Charlotte, all these fucking riots are put on by these universities, these institutions in these states. They're choreographed riots and stuff like that for media purposes to go ahead and put out there and sway public perception of something. You know what I'm saying? They're there as social engineering. So this means that the police and these college students, these institutions work together to put on these little charades of about like, maybe 4, 5, 6 blocks or something like that, where they're rioting, looting, or doing whatever the fuck they're doing. It's in a small area and it's sectioned off and coordinated, you know, to go ahead and put on the mainstream media for you to invest and say, oh yeah, you know what, this is what the country's coming to. On one side you got the communist, on the other side you got the fascist. And mind you that we are a fascist government. We are not a democracy and haven't been a democracy since Abraham Lincoln. So if you think that we're a democracy, I'm sorry to break this fucking to you. You can sit there and call everybody a fucking fascist that you fucking want, but we're not a fucking democracy. That's for goddamn sure. So they orchestrate these little shows. And in a Civil War type scenario, which wouldn't be I'm going to sit there and say it's going to be more of a revolution type scenario, because the state doesn't have enough. First off, we're not going to go ahead and get into any kind of wedge issue. So nobody's going to sit there and take up arms to defend abortion. So the state doesn't have any real good placebo to go ahead and take up arms and infiltrate and to mandate any kind of real martial law. Not to mention that they don't have the support. Right now you've got 25% of the country, which is the MAGA base, who are just going to go ahead and vote Donald Trump and support MAGA no matter what. You have 2% that support the Democrat Party. You know what I'm saying? And most of these people are the ones that work in the State Departments, they work in media, they benefit from the taxpayer dole like fucking parasites. So it's only like 2% of the country that support the Democrat Party in any kind of real meaningful type of sustainable war. You can't have a sustainable war with 2% of the approval versus 25% and 73% having no confidence in either party right now, which is where we're at right now. And neither side has no consensus on the general consensus on the public discourse. So that 73% is in fucking limbo as far as the State Department. They don't know to what degree they don't trust the media. They don't know to what degree are these people hoarders. Are they sitting there stockpiling ammo? Are they, preparing? Are they setting fucking wire traps and shit like that around their properties? Are they well versed? How many of them are vets? We know at least 18 million vets are out there. How many of these people are veterans already preparing for urban warfare and whatnot and already know your tactics and schemes and shit and your routes and where you would set everything up? It would be a fucking ungodly fucking nightmare for the State Department to go ahead and implement any kind of martial law and introduce kind of communist style of takeover like they did in China. It wouldn't work out so well here in the United States. You understand what I'm saying? So in this event right here, you're having these people staging these protests, right? First off, there's not going to be any protests like this right here that are going to be sitting here going out there throwing, because we've already went past that point. And even if you did throw and stage these protests and whatnot, you are leaving it wide open for, soldiers that would be forming a resistance or whatnot to infiltrate these groups, to go ahead and set up, the police and whatnot, go ahead and use tactics. You're making yourself a fucking target, is what you would do if you're still trying to put up these little fucking schemes and narratives and get people to go from one side to the other. Those days would be fucking over. And the press wouldn't even be a thing right now. But all extensive purposes for this movie, the press get together and they're going to go behind enemy lines. They're going to go visit the front lines and see what's going on in the war on their way to go see the President of the United States. They want to do an interview with the President of the United States, who supposedly doesn't give interviews and whatnot because he's supposed to be this universe's version of Donald Trump. With Kristen Dunst being a subliminal message, a social engineering version of Hillary Clinton. So, as they all meet up in this hotel, they're driving down the road, they're going through Carolinas, going through the front line, they're on their way to meet the president, they have to stop and get gas. where they come upon a trio of guys right here. Now, this is exactly why I knew Alex Garland had no fucking clue what the hell he was talking about, or had any clue what would happen if there was an American Civil War. Because in this scene, Kristen Dunst gets out. She offers the guy $300 for a tank of gas, right? Seems expensive. The guy turns to her and says, $300 gets you a ham sandwich. Meaning that the fucking USD has collapsed. However, Kristen Dunst says, well, I'll give you 300 Canadian dollars. Now, this is where, stupid meets stupid, because the Canadian dollar and your United Kingdom dollar is all based on the United States dollar. Basically, we are the we're the world reserve currency. We are the Federal Reserve note for the world, where you need to have to trade gas. If the United States fell into any kind of civil war, your dollar would collapse in the UK. The Canadian dollar would collapse immediately. I guarantee you there would probably be revolutions in both the United Kingdom and in Canada. It wouldn't just be a United States thing. All of a sudden, the Australia and New Zealand, they're going to be falling into some sort of civil conflict just like the United States would. Your dollars would be absolutely fucking worthless. And, all that oil, because we don't have really good, we don't have a good, real, connection with the Middle East. We don't have a good reputation with the Middle East at all. You know what I'm saying? And, after the United States were to collapse, and the threat of the United States military wouldn't be on these Middle Eastern countries, who's to sit there and say that you're still getting your oil? Particularly after all the pressure that you just put on Russia. I guarantee you, Russia and China wanted to network something out, they would probably go right into Eastern Europe and maybe walk across to Western Europe and take over that whole fucking continent. Because they would be able to do it. Who would be stopping them? I don't think that they would be really aggressive about it, but they could certainly use some form of, especially with the BRICS nations and stuff like that coming together. The Middle East has a better rapport with Russia right now than it probably does with the Americas, particularly whenever they're talking about going ahead and causing more conflict because of Israel in the Middle East. You know what I'm saying? If the United States goes into civil war, who's to sit there and say that these countries over there in Western Europe, who may be power starved at this point in time because the Middle East just told you to go fuck off, you know what I'm saying? And Russia says, you know what, we'll be friendly with you, we'll go ahead and make deals with you, we'll go ahead and welcome you into the fucking BRICS nations, we'll just go ahead and use our dollar. And then you're fucking sitting there, and you're on an island in the UK, you know what I'm saying? The United States and Canada, they'll be just fine. Maybe particularly Australia and New Zealand, I think that they might be okay, but fucking Europe would definitely, fucking England would definitely be screwed if this were to fucking be a reality. Because not only would that dollar drop for the United States, it would drop for all of you and all of your power, because you're looking at all those military bases that we have in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in the Middle East, all those bases that we have all over the place, they would quickly fall into the hands of, all of these, fundamental groups and shit for these countries and whatnot. And, you think that rioting and looting was bad. You think that half of the shit that you have going on in your mainstream media is bad. It won't be bad until after that. Like I said, a lot of shit would change. If America went into a civil war, the whole fucking world balance would shift immediately in like a matter of fucking hours once America went into the Civil War. So no, you're not going to be trading that Canadian. If that United States dollar is worth shit, then that Canadian dollar is worth shit. It's going to be worthless. And so, I'm pretty much, like I said, I'm pretty sure that Canada would follow the United States suit. And like I said, it's not going to be a civil war because the state doesn't have enough. It doesn't have enough support to sustain a civil war in and of itself. It's going to be more of like a French Revolution style thing, where people are going to storm the Bastille. It's not going to be January 6th. it's not going to be a bunch of federal agents sitting there running these motherfuckers. Because those federal agents are going to be the first ones picked out, and those are going to be the first ones made an example out of. However, for some reason, these rebels for California, Texas engagement decide that they're going to allow the press to go ahead and tag along, take pictures of their operations positions, give away all of their strategies and shit in these fucking news articles and how they go ahead and do. I guarantee you that 9 times out of 10, if this was to happen and this was to be a civil war type scenario, which I think it's going to be more of a, they're going to have their own media. You know what I'm saying? The media will be the first motherfuckers out there to be targeted by these people. You mainstream propagandist media shills, and even you internet influencers, some of you to a degree, that have done the Operation Mockingbird, spreading propaganda, trying to cause the division and shit, you would be the easiest fucking targets. We can't necessarily get to the fucking politicians and these, globalists who are pulling the fucking strings immediately, your George Soroses and your fucking Hillary Clintons, they're going to be protected. But those fucking internet shills, those propagandists, those fucking internet influencers and shit that sit there and push stuff like the Comic-Con and stuff, oh fuck yeah, they'll be able to get a hold of you. You're going to be the sacrificial lambs whenever this shit pops off. So if you take that, oh wow, yeah, you know what, they have no fucking use, because it wouldn't matter if you went back and marched your ass up to the fucking State Department and begged them for protection. They would use you as some sort of fucking tribunal bait to go ahead and put your ass up on the guillotine, to go ahead and appease the masses that would be coming up after them. So they wouldn't have any use for you because you're already a liability. And to the people that would be fighting the war, the resistance, well, you're a fucking traitor. So they're not going to fucking trust you. So I don't see the press at any given time being that they're going to be very revered during this time. So I think that this is kind of, like I said, this is more lazy writing and just not understanding. This is probably the realest point of the film, where anybody that's a part of the fucking resistance would be, or part of the government would be going to tribunals. They would have these little black hats on as they're being marched up to their fucking execution. It's just being kind. Now, I myself don't advocate for public mass executions. Maybe some of them deserve executions. I don't know. I don't get to be a part. I'm not a part of that fucking tribunal. I'm not the one over there deciding your fucking fate. But me, myself, I believe in arresting these motherfuckers and putting them in forced labor camps, producing energy, contributing to the, since they've already cost us trillions of dollars. Let's go ahead and get that trillions of dollars out of them and put them as cheap fucking labor, manufacturing labor, energy production labor and shit. So, they're going along and they run into some, I don't know if this guy was a part of the resistance, a part of the California, Texas alliance, or if he was a part of the government. However, they come upon this guy, and supposedly this is where they're trying to go ahead and indicate that these people are somehow racist. And, he says, what kind of Americans are you? And he starts killing the Chinese guy. He asks the Cuban guy or the Puerto Rican guy, wherever he's from, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Miami. So that's an American, you know what I'm saying? So, and trying to go ahead and play with it a little bit. However, we get exactly, this is supposed to be the Trump supporter. In any kind of real world scenario, if they were doing illegal operations, they're not going to give a fuck where you come from. They're not going to sit there and say, oh, well, that's a yellow guy, that's a black guy, and that's a fucking Hispanic guy. Let's go ahead and save all the white people and kill discriminately. No, they're just going to fucking go ahead and kill all of you because they don't want you to see what they were doing, their operations. They're not going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, we're going to let all the white people go because we're both white and you're going to keep your mouth shut. So this is just another one of those just really lazy writing from a media perspective. And like I said, the media is kind of like the king of lazy writing and making stuff less compelling, more cathartic from their own mind that nobody can actually fucking identify with. So people who understand the military procedures, people that would understand how to go ahead and survive and instigate this fucking, are not going to watch this movie. You know what I'm saying? I watched the movie just to see how fucking ridiculous and fucking inaccurate it would be. But like real military people are like, it's fucking stupid. It's too stupid for me to watch. You know? So they're not gonna really watch it. So, you know, you get to the end of the movie, they execute the president, and of course, you know, the press are seen as heroes. So, from what I am to understand, the reason why Texas and California formed this alliance is because, one, the president ran as a three-term president. As I stated at the beginning of this video, we've already had three-term president, worst president in history, and so I don't think that that would be enough. Not to mention that we would never get another three-term president. That would never fucking happen. Unless you want to go ahead and count Trump as a three-term president, since, you know, really he won the last fucking 3 elections. The State Department rigged the election against him during Biden. We kind of fucking get that. You'd have to be stupid to sit there and think that there wasn't some sort of tampering by the State Department for Joe Biden. I don't want to hear any fucking, you're a conspiracy theorist. I got a fully functional brain, and we know that fucking Trump, that Biden didn't beat Trump. We know this fucking shit, and you can sit there and throw all of the fucking other fucking shills out there that ran the fucking case through whatever the fuck. I honestly don't give a fuck. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter to me. But you know, Trump would be the closest thing to a three-term president, which is, like I said, this guy is supposed to represent Donald Trump because they know he's going to win the fucking White House again. And so that wouldn't be enough to cause a civil war, because you'd have to get the outrage. The outrage would have to be there. You never explain where the outrage comes with this guy at all. So why was he able to run that third term? You know you're not supposed to be able to run that third term. And Washington would have an issue, and they would have replaced him, because there's no way that the 600,000 people in Washington, D.C. could overpower the will of the 331 million motherfuckers here in the United States. They're pressing their luck with this fucking administration, and right now they've pretty much losing a majority of the country in confidence in the United States and the D.C. political party as a whole. So the other one that I heard, the other reason was because the president disbanded the FBI, and I guess a lot of these. Let me tell you something. The United States has existed without a Federal Bureau of Investigation, and a lot of these fucking State Department, bureaucracy, fucking departments and shit. They're not really that necessary. You can go ahead and get rid of the Internal Revenue Service. They have to keep fucking starting these wars, which they're trying to get into a war right now in the Middle East. Again, they're trying to get into war with Russia. They're trying to get in war with China. They're trying to get in war with Palestine and Iran and fucking Israel and shit. And the reason why is because they've got to justify getting into these perpetual wars. That's why we're always constantly getting into these perpetual wars every 4 to 5 fucking years. Because they've got to justify that income tax. And if we don't get in any new wars, well, guess what? You don't need to take any fucking taxes, because we don't need any of that military spending that you're going to go ahead and use that tax dollar on. Even though the fucking socialists out there will demand a fucking higher and higher and higher fucking tax, it's not really that fucking necessary. So, getting rid of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, getting rid of the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, all of these, at some point in time they have to start showing their worth, and I honestly don't believe that would be enough to go ahead and ignite a civil war. I don't think that a lot of people would miss him if if Trump abolishes the shit. There wouldn't be enough people. The ones that would be pissed off are the ones that work for the agencies. They would be out of fucking a job. However, there would be more jobs opening up in the private sector. If we're spending a lot less money in DC, that means that more money would be being used more effectively, because the dollar is more valuable in the fucking private market, in the individual taxpayer's pocket, than it is in the bureaucrat's pocket up in DC. It's just more valuable, because there is no, the government is not going to demand any kind of real quality. they're just going to demand your tax dollars and they're not going to have any competitors. And that's just the way that it is. So, by all means, this movie was fucking generic. The writing was lazy. And like I said, there's not really, I mean, we've already freed the slaves, so you can't use that as a placebo anymore. What are you going to use as a placebo? That we went to civil war because of abortions? You know, fucking child sacrifice? Is that what you're going to use as justification for going into civil war? That's not the same fucking thing. You know what I'm saying? It's not. So, yeah, we would be closer to going into a French Revolution, meaning that the United States government would be overthrown by its own people. It would be Washington, D.C. versus the United States. And I guarantee you, it wouldn't last more than a fucking hour. Once that fucking happened, then the rest of the fucking European power, the authority that Europe holds right now on the world and controlling the oil supply, would cause a fucking mass fucking panic in Europe altogether. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, y'all are doing well enough to hold that shit together, as we see right now. So yeah, there's not enough. You know, you're talking about the left versus right, and you're talking about Democrats versus Republicans. The Democrats don't have enough support to sustain a civil war with that 2%. You know what I'm saying? The MAGA, like I said, it would be closer to the shit that happened in Hitler's in the Nazi Germany with the Nazis. That's what you would be looking at right now, with the MAGA base being the Nazi party, because they're extremely more fucking popular than the communist base. It would be the old Weimar Republic versus the fucking Nazi party, with the other 73% of us just like, oh well, fuck it, you know, just let the fucking let the Nazis handle our dirty work, and then whenever it comes time to take out the Nazis, that's what we'll fucking do. If it comes time to go ahead and take out those motherfuckers, then that's what we'll do. But right now, there's no reason for the rest of the 73% of the country to go ahead and even get involved in the fucking Civil War, because that Civil War wouldn't last more than 30 to 45 minutes. I could order a fucking pizza right now from Domino's, and it would get here. It would take longer to get here than it would for that Civil War to fucking last. Because with the 2.1 million people that the military has, this is with the reserves and all the branches put together, versus that, to say, even like 9 million, half of that fucking 18 million vets, and say, you know, half of the fucking MAGA party, 35 million more fucking, 35 more million more fucking recruits right there, fighting on behalf of the fucking MAGA movement. Well, you just wouldn't stand a snowball's chance in hell with that 6 million people in toto that the Democrats could accumulate. So anyways, yeah, I figured I would go ahead and do my breakdown of this movie, why it was corny, why it was totally fucking inaccurate, why the writing was lazy, and why these people that are gonna come out and talk about it and say, oh, America's already kind of in a civil war, because Tim Pool said that, you know, Destiny had stinky feet, and Stinky Feet Destiny said that Tim Pool was a bald-headed loser, and now, you know, Hassan Piker and Salty Cracker are getting into it, and this is the beginning of a civil war, guys. It really is. We're going to spam troops at each other from our Pretendo, playing Conquer and Command and shit like that. But the rest of us live in fucking reality. We're not playing your Dungeons and Dragons game. So whenever it comes to take up fucking arms, the shit's not going to be playing, you know, some sort of World of Warcraft or whatever the fuck that you play, your little Pretendo game. It's not going to be that, alright? So anyways, you people tell me what you think. You like, sub, do the shit the internet tells me to do to get over. And for now, I'm out.